The garage door was open. It was the first thing I noticed, and that's when I knew my late husband's car was gone. 2 decades of his life, lost in a single night. My son had sold it for a Paris trip with his wife, but one phone call the following morning changed everything. The man on the other end claimed he had Dennis's car. He said there was something Dennis had wanted me to know, something he'd hidden before he passed away. I'm Carol, and this is the story of how my late husband saved me and taught my son and his wife a lesson they'll never forget. But before we dive deeper, make sure to leave a comment letting us know where you're watching from and subscribe to the Never Too Old channel. We're building a community of people who know the best chapters of life can come at any age. Now, back to the story. The garage door was open. That's what I noticed first. I stood in my kitchen, holding a cup of coffee that was getting cold. Through the window above the sink, I saw it. The door rolled up, the inside dark, despite the sunlight streaming in. Dennis never left it open. 43 years together, and he never once forgot to close it before bed. But now, Dennis had been gone for 8 months. I set the coffee cup down, walked to the back door, and opened it. The spring air hit me, warmer than usual for April. It was the kind of morning Dennis would have already been outside, bent over the car with the rag in his hand. I crossed the yard, noticing the grass needed mowing. I had been meaning to get someone to take care of it. The concrete felt cold under my slippers. The oil stain in the middle of the garage floor was dark and familiar. After 20 years of the same car parked in the same spot, it left its mark. But the spot was empty now. Just empty. I stood there staring at nothing. The workbench along the back wall was exactly how Dennis had left it. His tools were hanging on the pegboard, outlined with black marker, so he would always know where to return them. His red toolbox sat closed on the bench, and his journal lay open next to it, filled with his neat, meticulous handwriting. The car was gone. A tightness gripped my chest. I placed my hand on the door frame and took a deep breath. In through my nose, out through my mouth. I'd spent 43 years in the ICU, so I knew how to control my breathing, even when everything else inside me was unraveling. But in that moment, I couldn't think past the emptiness. I picked up the journal. The last entry was dated 3 weeks before Dennis died. His handwriting seemed fatigued, the letters a little looser than usual. Almost done. 20 years on this beauty. Can't wait to teach Carol to drive it properly. Our retirement road trip starts next summer. I closed the journal and set it back where it had been. The garage still smelled like him, motor oil, old leather, and that orange hand soap he used. I could almost hear him, could almost feel him here, and hear the classic rock he used to play on his old radio. He'd sing along when he thought I wasn't listening. Then a car engine pulled me out of my thoughts. I turned, and Brian's black BMW pulled into the driveway. Leased, not bought. He'd mentioned that at Christmas, like I should be impressed. My son, 38 years old, stepped out of the driver's side and avoided making eye contact, just like he always did when he'd done something wrong. Even from across the yard, I could see it. The way his shoulders slumped, the way his hands shoved into his pockets. The passenger door opened, and Vanessa stepped out. She looked perfect, as always. Smooth, dark hair, designer sunglasses, clothes that probably cost more than my entire grocery bill. She stood next to the car, eyeing me standing in the garage. Even with her sunglasses on, I could feel her eyes on me. Brian walked toward me and stopped at the edge of the driveway. "Mom," he said. I waited. "I need to talk to you about something." "Where's the car, Brian?" His jaw clenched. "That's what I need to talk about." "I sold it," he said, and the words hit me like a cold slap. They didn't make sense at first. It was like hearing a different language. My mind needed time to process. "You what?" "I sold it yesterday afternoon," he mumbled, looking at the empty garage, then at the ground. "I needed the money. Vanessa's been planning this Paris trip for months. It's important for her business connections. I couldn't let her down." The tightness in my chest deepened. My hands started shaking, so I crossed my arms. "That was your father's car. It was just sitting there." He got defensive, his voice hardening. Dad's gone, Mom. You don't even drive it. It was his car. He finally met my gaze, his eyes red, tired. I got a good price for it. $15,000, fair for a car that old. $15,000 for a car that Dennis had spent every weekend working on, a car Dennis had promised would stay in the family. I wanted to scream, to grab him and shake him until he understood what he had done. But 43 years in the ICU had taught me how to stay calm, even when I was falling apart inside. When did you take it? Yesterday afternoon. You were at the store. He still had his key, the one from when he lived here. I never asked it back. Dennis always left the garage unlocked, just in case he needed to get in quickly. You should have asked me. Would you have said yes? No, he muttered. Vanessa stepped forward, moving like she owned the driveway, the yard, the whole street. She stood next to Brian and placed a hand on his arm. Her nails were painted a perfect red. Carol, we're not discussing this anymore. It's done. The car's sold. We leave for Paris tomorrow. I looked at her, really looked at her. She'd been married to my son for 2 years, and I still didn't know anything about her, where she grew up, what her family did. I didn't know anything real about her life before Brian. She smiled a lot, but it never quite reached her eyes. This is between me and my son, I said. I'm her wife, she replied, her voice smooth, almost condescending. Brian needed the money. The car was just sitting there. It made sense to sell it. I didn't trust myself to speak. I just looked at Brian. He wouldn't meet my eyes again. Vanessa's hand stayed possessively on his arm. We'll send you pictures from Paris, Vanessa said, her smile almost too sweet. You'd love it there. The architecture, the museums, very romantic. The cruelty in that comment hit me hard, but I couldn't tell if she realized it or not. Or maybe she did. Brian shifted on his feet. We should go. We still need to pack. They turned to leave. Vanessa's window rolled out. Take care of yourself, Carol. We'll see you when we get back. I stood in the yard and watched them drive away, the car disappearing around the corner. Then I was alone. I returned to the garage, standing in the center where the oil stain had been. The silence was different now, emptier without the car. The morning sun streamed through the open door, lighting up the dust in the air. I picked up Dennis's journal again and opened to the last entry. I read his words about teaching me to drive, about our road trip, about the 20 years of work finally completed. His coffee mug sat on the shelf, stained from years of use, its handle worn smooth. I'd washed it after he died, but never could bring myself to put it away. Everything was here. The tools, his workbench, his radio, the smell of him in every corner, and the empty space where the Shelby should have been. I closed the journal and held it close. The sun had warmed. I could hear a dog barking down the street, a lawnmower starting up. Normal sounds for a normal morning. 8 months of being a widow, and I thought I'd cried every tear. But standing there in that garage, holding Dennis's journal, staring at the empty space left by our son's actions, the tears started again.